So yeah, my name's Chris Maguire. I'm the editor of Business Cloud magazine. So we're a business tech magazine. I was at an event last Monday. I was at BAE Systems and we were talking about Industry 4.0. Richard Hagan was there from Crystal Doors. He's here today. What an amazing business that is here in Rochdale, the way they've embraced Industry 4.0. And that's what I love about, coming out and about meeting great businesses doing amazing things, especially with technology. Can you hear me okay if I take that down or not? You can hear me okay, can you? There he is. You can spot Richard Hagan. He's the one with a psychedelic shirt in the middle there, which looks like he's wearing for a bet. Can you still hear me now? You can't, so I need to use that. Okay. Because we're at Zen Internet, they like to offer value for money, so we've got two speakers for the price of one. We've heard from Richard Tang before, but we've also got a new CEO who until recently was the chairman, and we're going to ask them questions they've never been asked before, but they've said they're happy for me to ask them any questions they want. So put your hands together, if you would, for Richard Tang and for Paul Stobart. Okay, is it working okay? Now, Richard, before I come to you and I ask you lots and lots of questions about your career at Zen Internet, the business you started, I think, back in 1995, you've grown it to 500 people, you've got a turnover of £71 million. I'm going to come to your chief executive, because a lot of people in the room won't have heard of Paul Stobart or who Paul Stobart is as well. So, because I'm going to start with Richard, I just want to introduce Paul, if I may. Now, Paul is born and bred Geordie, a very, very proud Geordie. I will be providing a translation for what he says, because when you hear his accent, it's a mix between Paul Gascoigne and Ant and Dec. I mean, it is as strong as Newcastle as you can get. Just say a few words by introduction, if you would, Paul.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah. Glad to be here.
Spent his early life in Africa. Sounds nothing like a Geordie at all, but he assures me he is a Geordie. Richard, I'll start with you, if I may. And before I take you on your journey of Zen Internet and how you created it, etc., etc., I want to take you back to when you were 15 years of age. And that's a long, long time ago. Long, long time for all of us. Picture the scene. You're in a Peak District. You're on a mountain or a hill, call it what you will, called Mam Tor. You're 715 metres above the ground. Okay, you're holding on to a second-hand hang glider that you've purchased. The only training you've had is what you taught yourself from a book about hang gliding. Your mum's watching you, and you throw yourself off the edge, having never done anything like this before in your life. Are you crazy?
I always had that dream of flying. Yeah, so I bought the hang glider. Back then, you couldn't go on the internet because it didn't exist, of course. So I went to Rochdale Library and I borrowed 4 books, the little brown things and everything, how to hang glide. Yeah. So I did a few little ones first to get the hang of it, and then yeah.
But does that sort of sum you up in the sense that people who know you describe you as being quite fearless, and if you put your mind to something, you'll do it? And I think hang gliding's like an example of that. Would that describe you to a T?
There's definitely a big part of me, yeah, that wants to push my boundaries, but without killing myself. So, yeah.
Looking at that chair, to be honest with you, that looks a bit nervous. That looks like you might fall. But what a way to go off a stool. That's
terrible, wouldn't it?
Okay. I often wonder where entrepreneurs get their zeal from, where they get their passion. And we were talking before, and I said to you, tell us about your parents. And I think your dad was a teacher, and your mum, and I said, your mum's a bit different, because I said you're a bit of a free spirit, and you said, I don't know if I would use that term. I said, but my mum's approach to parenting could best be described as not particularly strong. Just tell us about your mum.
Yeah, so my mum had a very strict upbringing as an only child, and she vowed that if she ever had children, she would let them do pretty much whatever they wanted. And she saw that through with me and my 2 brothers. So absolutely, when I said, Mum, I want to buy a hang glider and throw myself off a hill, it's like, right, son, I'll give you a lift. So which was very brave, actually, when I think back.
Yeah, but nothing.
Because I was on that particular flight. Yeah. I went off.
Yeah.
And I'd not really done very much. And as I came down into land, I noticed there was a big power pylon in my landing path, which I thought, that's not very good. I need to turn. So I turned downwind, which is not so good because you're going a lot faster downwind, and then stuffed it into the field. But I was okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And the hang glider was okay.
Okay. You're not taken to flying drones around airfields now, have you?
Definitely
Okay.
not. No.
Okay.
No.
I want to talk about Zen, and I want
But
to
my
talk about.
paraglider's in my car downstairs.
Is it?
Yeah. So
Are you still doing it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about Buddhism. Okay, and not a question I ask very often, actually. Zen is a form of Buddhism.
It is.
And it's described as, and I quote, religious knowledge is achieved through emptying the mind. I've emptied my mind a long time ago, just need some religious knowledge in there now. You've got a reputation for being, and I said earlier, a free spirit. And when anybody describes you who've never met you before, they say, he's the guy with the ponytail. Is that an example of your free spirit? Did you grow that because it's in line with your Buddhist principles?
It was for a girl, actually, who liked long hair. Yes.
Are you still with the girl?
Oh, no. There's been one or two more since then.
Okay. And they like long hair as well, do they?
Yeah.
We hear about sliding door moments. Okay, the things in life that change you and impact on you. I mean, hang gliding might have been one as well.
Yeah.
When you were 14, you were at school, and they took delivery, the school that is, took delivery of a Commodore PET computer, which for those of you of a certain age might remember it. Okay, and you were just fascinated by it, weren't you? Just explain what that did to you.
Yeah, so they took this delivery of this little computer, a little keyboard, a cassette tape built in, and I was just fascinated. Break times, lunch times, I was there on that computer teaching myself how to program, writing programs. And from that early age, I feel very lucky that very quickly I thought, this is it. This is the way my life and career is going to go. This is what I want to do in my A-levels. This is what I want to do in university. So yeah, from that early age, I was definitely a computer geek.
But it could have been different as well, because you wanted to become a concert pianist as well, but you couldn't afford the tuition lessons, and more to the point, your family couldn't. So you taught yourself, and you got up to Chopin.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I could only ever do the two-finger thing, and I had 2 years' worth of lessons as well. But does that sort of sum you up in the sense that if you were to decide to learn German, you would do it? If you were to learn French, you would do it? You're one of those people where you pick your mind to something, you can just deliver on it?
Yeah. I think a lot of things I've taught myself, and one of the lessons of life, actually, and hang gliding is a good example, is because I've taught myself, it's taken a lot longer. And actually, it's much better to have a bit of good tuition, definitely. Having said that, with all the tuition and all the books in the world, you absolutely have to make a whole bunch of mistakes. Unavoidable, part of the learning process. And one thing that I really say a lot in Zen is, no matter all the courses that you go on, you're going to make mistakes. Let's everyone see them as learning opportunities, and let's be open about them. Let's embrace them as opportunities, not just for that person to learn and step up, but let's share that knowledge. I made this mistake, this is what I've learned. Maybe from that, you're not going to make the same mistake again. So very keen that that's part of the culture here.
Yeah, I listen to lots and lots of podcasts. There's one by a lady called Elizabeth Day, and she talks about failure. That's the name of her podcast. And she brings people in, really successful people, who talk about their failures. And I think that's one of the problems we have in business, in terms of it's like a dirty secret. It shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. A failure is a step closer to success, I always think.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we look at the history of Zen, I mean, the name Zen suggests like some sort of Chinese link. And I think you're 30th generation Chinese, and you did a family history which traced your history back to the Tang dynasty, and you related apparently to a general, is it, or a colonel in the Chinese army. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, so my dad's Chinese, born in Hong Kong, so I'm half Chinese, and his family kept a family history book, an original family history that went all the way back in China, and yeah, it went as far back as 18 generations to the Tang dynasty, and indeed a general in the Chinese army, my however many great grandfather.
We talk about this business, and we talk about the fact here we are in Rochdale. You employ 500 people here in Rochdale.
Yeah.
You're one of the biggest employers as well. Did coming to Rochdale, because you're Rochdale born and bred, was that deliberate, or was it just because the industry you're in, you could have set up anywhere in the UK, couldn't you, or beyond?
Yeah, and to be honest, it was pretty much completely by chance. So when myself and my brother decided we were going to set up Zen, I was working in Bristol on a software contract back then, and we said, if the internet is going to take off, it will take off everywhere, so it doesn't matter where we're based. Dan, you're living at home at the moment, you're going to build the network, so why don't we just set it up in Rochdale? And that was really all the thought that went into it. Having said that, it's been a fantastic location to set up the business for quite a number of reasons. First of all, in those early days of the internet, a lot of the early ISPs, internet service providers, were based around London, so we had a regional differentiator. We were able to cover the whole of Manchester, so we had a big target customer group from where we were. And we also got amazing help from what was then Business in Rochdale in getting us up and running, teaching me what a profit and loss account was and a balance sheet. I didn't have a clue actually when I started. I remember in 1994 I moved into a shared office, and I opened the filing cabinet. It was empty, but there was a lever arch that said invoices on it. And I remember thinking, I wonder what an invoice is. I honestly didn't know. So that was my accounting knowledge. And Business Link Rochdale taught me about accounts, double entry bookkeeping, all those things that are essential. So that was great business support, business mentoring in the early days. And as a place to attract talent as well, you know, we've attracted 500 qualified, talented people into this business from Rochdale. And so, it's been tough, but we've managed to attract people into the area.
You touched on a word then, mentoring, and there was a report that came out about Greater Manchester, which actually has less mentors than most other areas in the country. It's one of the reasons why a sister company to mine called Tech Manchester's launched to try and mentor. You got to 2017, you've won countless awards, you've grown the business to, above £50 million. Somebody said to you, you need a mentor. You'd benefit from a mentor. You went on a leadership course, which is how you came to meet the man who changed your life. Did you realise then that...
You did, Paul.
Okay. Did you realise at that point, I needed help?
Not at all, no, because Zen was doing well, it was growing, it was successful, we were financially solid, we were investing for the future. And so when the suggestion from the leadership course that with all the senior team went on was, you could benefit from a mentor. And I thought, you know what, I've never had a mentor in 20 odd years, and I'm bound to get something from it. I'm bound to get something. So why not, let's give it a go. And the lady that run the Living Leader, the course that we were on, knew Paul very well and recommended Paul as, and I quote her, one of the best leaders I know. And so we got in touch, we set up a 6-month program, and absolutely during those 6 months, Paul showed me how to become a better CEO. And so it really was a sliding doors moment, because it really has changed my life and what I do now, and it's massively improved what was a successful growing business. We're now looking at accelerating that growth and becoming a serious challenger brand to the big names in the industry across the markets that we operate in. And I don't think we could have done that with just me at the helm.
Paul, I'm going to come to you now. You made your name at Sage, you helped grow that business. What were you doing in 2017 when you got the call to say, there's this guy called Richard who you need to meet?
Well, I thought I was heading towards retirement. Is that working? Can you hear me?
To be honest, I think Newcastle can hear you. Actually, don't worry.
Thank you very much. I thought I was heading for retirement. I was planning a plural portfolio, a bit of coaching, a bit of mentoring. It was all going to be very relaxing, and I could sort of look after the family and go and watch Newcastle United.
Well, you talk about
happily.
Actually, any excuse not to watch Newcastle United.
I was going to say, you could hear a pin drop then, couldn't you?
Yeah, you'd have taken any job you wanted. Probably come to Chorley or something, where I live. You mentioned the family, actually. Interesting fact about you as well. I always think it's interesting to paint a picture about the people you hear from, because it's not just about business. True or false, you've got 2 sets of twin daughters, You've got two. You've got one set of 14 and one set of 13. So you've been busy.
Yeah, it's true. You have to take a while to compute that, but it is indeed two sets of twin girls, aged
Roger
14 and
Federer's
13.
got two sets of twin girls as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, but not as close together.
Okay.
So he's a bit of an apprentice, really. We had 4 under 15 months. So that's 2 years of my life that. You see, there's lots of wincing going on in the audience. In fact, it's interesting, the reaction. Most of the women, and this is a sexist remark, I apologize in advance, most of the women are saying, oh, isn't that lovely? And all of the men are all going, oh my God.
Yeah.
And the men are correct, of course.
Yeah. So another reason for coming down and working with Richard is you've avoided 4 teenage daughters every day of the week as well.
That's right. I've signed a 25-year contract to be down here in Rochdale.
If we take us back to what we're more familiar with, which is your relationship with Richard. So you're doing this mentoring with him, and you suggested that Richard set up a different way of governing the business and create a board. I was fascinated, even though the business was as big as it didn't have a board. And then you became the chairman. So just explain what it was that was missing and what it was that you brought to Zen in those early days.
Well, Zen had all the zeal and entrepreneurial flair that it needed to continue to grow. There was no question about that. But as a business gets bigger, it benefits from having an element of governance, an element of the checks and balances that an independent set of directors on a board can provide. And so that balance between the board directors and between the executive team is a pretty fundamental part of how companies work, how businesses work, not just in this country, but globally. And so it was something that we agreed would be an addition that would help set up the business for its next chapter of growth.
At the first stage that you met Richard, what did you think of him? And be honest, what did you think of him?
I was inspired by him. I thought he was delightful, charming, personable, authentic, and incredibly passionate about the business. So it was a pleasure to be his mentor.
Yeah, and I always think mentoring is a two-way thing, isn't it? It's not just about you mentoring him. What did you take away? What did you benefit from speaking to Richard?
Well, for me, it was learning about a new business, a new industry, and it was also recognizing and understanding that our philosophy on how to run a business was uncannily aligned. And that was a delight. So, I have always expressed it as being, if you have people who are inspired, fired up, who believe in what they're doing, who are well-led, well-nurtured, well-developed, then customers will feel a great experience, different from the experience they get from elsewhere. And that will lead inexorably to enhanced loyalty, better recommendation, more purchasing, and therefore superior financial returns. So it's a people, customer, money philosophy. And if you focus on money first, inevitably you get some short-term performance, but you're not going to have it sustainable over the longer term. If you focus on people first, driving a great customer experience, in my view, you always get the superior financial return that follows. And Richard's very impassioned belief in happy staff, happy customers, happy suppliers, which underpins Zen's corporate culture, is very much the same sort of philosophy.
I read an interview with Stevie Gerrard, the Liverpool legend, and one of the things that people said was that Stevie Gerrard only ever wanted to be the best that he could at football. He never, troubled himself with the money that came with it. And as a consequence, the money came as a result of the success on the pitch. He said the footballers who fall by the wayside are the ones who chase the fast cars and the fast living as well. At the time that you met Richard, the most recent set of accounts, 71 million turnover company, you've identified a 3 to 5 year plan which you think can grow Zen to £250 million as well. What did you see then that you thought, there's this untapped potential that just needs a little bit of unlocking?
Well, we entered into a review of our strategy actually in the summer of last year, and it was a collective effort. So the whole of the executive team of Zen, obviously at the time led by Richard and I, engaged in this review of strategy. And what was revealed was not a surprise, was that the market for telecommunications, in particular broadband and connectivity services in the UK, is enormous with huge amounts of potential. And that the big four in the market are, fortunately, not very good at what they do. And so therefore there was room for a well-organized, well-run, very impassioned business to carve out not just a niche position, but a challenger brand position within that marketplace. And so we set about designing a plan to enable us to be able to have the right infrastructure, the right resource, the right approach, and the right thinking to be able to take advantage. And that's what we did, and we're now embarked on that journey.
Talking of journeys, a seamless link. Okay, going to come back to Richard now. So you've got the man that you want as your chairman. Okay, he's created a strategic plan for the business. He's going to grow it to £250 million. You've got a board which you've never had. You've got a mentor which you've never had. You've always had a vision, but now you've probably got a structure within that as well. You decide to cycle to Germany over 3 weeks. I think you were in Belgium, and suddenly you decided, I need him as my CEO, which does me out of a job, as you do. Just tell us about that moment as well.
Yeah, so this is something that was, I guess it didn't happen suddenly. The great thing about a cycling holiday is you've got lots of time to think as you're pedalling along and watching the scenery go by. So I guess it was building up for a while, and then there was about a week of that holiday where I kept thinking, you know what, Paul's teaching me how to become a better CEO. He's really experienced. Could he do my job better than I could do it? And if he did do my job, what could I do that I can't do today to promote the business and actually even pursue other interests? And so I thought, and I thought, oh, I don't know. And then in the end, I thought, no, this all makes sense. So I was somewhere in Belgium to the two of us, and I gave him a call and said, Paul, I've had this thought. What do you think about having my job? Yeah, so that's what I said. And actually, he wanted some time to think about it, of course.
What I'm going to do...
Well, actually, the truth is, I was picking up the 2 sets of twins from school, so there was chaos going on at the time I got the call. That was the truth.
I should just say, actually, if anyone wants to comment on today on Twitter, they can use a handle, This is Rochdale. This is Rochdale. Let's just recreate the scene. Okay, right, you're in your car. Was it hands-free, or could your kids hear in the back?
Well, it was hands-free. It was hands-free. The kids had just arrived outside the car doors with accoutrements, bags, sports kit, the stuff.
Accoutrements, that's a word you don't hear enough, you know. So your kids have turned up, your very well-spoken kids have turned up with the accoutrements.
No, they've got Geordie accents.
They've got Geordie accents, okay. So Richard called you up on the hands-free. How does it exactly go? Because you were saying that you were looking at taking on maybe a few non-exec directorships, etc., etc. Your life had been mucked out, you've got 4 kids, 2 sets of twins, everything sorted, you live in Newcastle, you obviously come down to Rochdale because you weren't doing that many days a month working as a chairman. How does it go? Because I'm happily married, I've got 2 teenage kids, and I know what my wife would say if I said I was going to move to Rochdale. Okay, how does it happen?
Well, I thought quickly, and I thought, this is my escape route. This is how I get out of the next 5 or 6 years of teenage hell, and can hopefully add value to the business. Now, seriously, I mean, by the time the conversation took place, I had become so enthused and impassioned. I mean, if you work very closely on the strategic development of a plan, and you can see how the business is going to evolve. I mean, even though I had thought to myself I was heading for retirement, actually I was enthused and inspired by the story, and flattered, very flattered by Richard asking if I could take it on. So one thing led to another. We had a few discussions, and eventually I decided to take the position.
This sounds like a stupid question, and I ask lots of stupid questions as well. But obviously, you were the chairman. You've handed the chairmanship to Richard. Richard was a CEO. He's handed the CEOship to you. Who tells who off?
Yeah, it's all a bit confusing, isn't it?
Yeah. So
when I was chairman, Richard was my report and I was his boss. But of course, he as the shareholder was my boss. So he was both my report and my boss. So we've made it much simpler now because he's just my boss.
Okay. Have you told off before? For using words like accoutrements?
No, not at all. No, we really see eye to eye. We have lots of discussions about where the business is going, and we see eye to eye. So, so far, all I've said is I'm absolutely delighted. Actually, there's nothing that I could have wished Paul to do that he's not done.
How has he change
But
the
you know,
business?
you never say never. You might step out of line. Yeah. who knows?
How has he changed the dynamics of the business? If you had to sum that one up.
I was saying earlier to Steve Rumbelow that I think Paul has put a rocket up the business in the most positive way. So he's taken what is already a successful, growing, cash generative business and said, you can set your sights higher than you're setting them, but we need to move faster. We need more pace. We need to stretch ourselves, but in a positive way. Absolutely sticking to the values of the business. You know, happy staff, happy customers, happy suppliers. Those are sacrosanct. Paul absolutely believes in them. Yes, so we're going to stick to the values, but let's push ourselves faster. Let's really aim higher. And that was music to my ears, actually, because I guess at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I know the opportunity is there. And I was a bit, I was enthusiastic myself to see how far can we push the business? Can we go a bit faster? And I think what Paul's brought is that experience of having done it before and made the mistakes along the way means that we can actually achieve that without a more meandering but successful path that I would have taken on my own.
Because sometimes, and this isn't the case for you, sometimes people become a chairman because they want an easier life. You see your opportunity as being a chairman that you want to take on the big boys, the Sky, the BT of the world. I mean, I was fascinated to find out that you've got, is it 0.03% of the market, even with over 100,000 customers?
I think it's about 0.3%.
0.3%.
Yeah,
so I did do you a disservice. Yeah. Apologies for that. So you're 0.3% of the market. So even though you're £71 million turnover company, 500 employees with over 100,000 customers, you still only got a fraction of the market.
Yeah.
Do you see your role as almost being like a Richard Branson type figurehead? Because Zen is really well known in Rochdale, quite clearly. It's really well known in Greater Manchester. But the further you get away from here, the less well known. Hard it is to believe, Richard, that you're less well known as a business. Do you see your role as chairman to be the face of Zen, across the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. We've engaged with a new PR agency based in London, and I actually said to them, I want you to make me to Zen what Richard Branson is to Virgin. I want to be that face of Zen. I want to get out there in the media. Now I've got the time to do that. And I want to do as much as I can to get Zen a known name so that when consumers across the country think of broadband, they're not thinking of just the big four, they're thinking of Zen. We're on the radar. And I was down in London the earlier this week and I was on TV for the first time on Tuesday morning, in the Times last week. So
it wasn't Jeremy Kyle or something. It was
no, it was BBC Business Live.
Okay. I mean, but a question for you, Paul, is that I think the best ambassador, excuse me, the best ambassador for this business is Richard, but he's not a really outgoing character like Richard Branson.
Well, I think that those of you who saw the Business Live interview will recognise it. I mean, Richard comes across in the media as being exactly what he is, which is authentic, impassioned, straight up, honest, full of integrity, and I think that makes him very appealing from a media perspective. And so all the experience that we've had working with the PR agency is that the journalists who've been involved, both from the radio side, from TV, from the press more generally, have really enjoyed the story. I think also the media are bored to death with talking to big corporates about big corporate stuff. These smaller businesses that are challenging, that are thinking differently, that are posing a sort of disruptive threat to the big guys. It's always an interesting story. And Richard's background, the story of Zen, all of that makes for appealing press. And so we've had a lot of success, and we hope to have much more.
You just announced plans to open up an office in Leeds, which is going to employ 83 people. You're very much committed to sort of Rochdale.
Yeah. No. Rochdale's the heart of the business. No question about that, and will always remain so. And we're continuing to recruit actually actively. We've got to recruit. I think we've got something like 30 or 40 positions under recruitment right now. Some are in Leeds, but most are in Rochdale. So that will continue.
I've got a couple more questions to ask you, but I'm very mindful that the audience might have some questions. Has anybody in the audience got a question they want to ask our new TV superstar or our Rochdale-based Geordie? What you tend to find is you get the first question, then you get two or three. But I always like to give people the opportunity, if you do want to ask a question, just put your hand up as well. You've been in Zen now since 1994, 95? Yeah. Long time. Pretty much your entire working life as well. Do you feel as though you're halfway through a journey, at the start of a journey, at the new chapter of a new book? How do you see yourself in terms of what you've achieved so far and how much more you've got to go?
I think that the last 23 years has been an incredible journey. If I think back to when we were in the Rochdale Enterprise Generation Centre back then, a little office with a couple of people, to here, it's more than my wildest dreams could have been back then. I think looking forward now, I feel like we built a great foundation, but there's much more to do. So, you talk about the big four in broadband: BT, Virgin, Sky, and TalkTalk. I want people to be talking about the big five. I want Zen to be on everyone's lips in the UK when they think about broadband, and we absolutely have the opportunity to do that. So there's a massive aspiration, and I think we're absolutely going to go for it. Another thing that I mentioned earlier, that being the chairman also frees me up to pursue other interests. So actually last week within Zen, I announced the opening of the Zen AI and Robotics division, which is very grand title. It's going to start off as me just writing code, so at home and stuck away in an office. But it's been an interest for me for many years, and I've never had the ability to pursue it, and now I have, and I want to see, can we push the boundaries of human knowledge in AI right here in Rochdale.
I think I interviewed you for the first time about 8 years ago, and I asked you, I said, do you get a lot of private equity companies wanting to buy a slice of the business? Have you had lots of people wanting to buy your business? And you said to me very robustly, you're not interested in that, I'm not interested. Spoke to you ahead of this meeting, and I asked you the same question, and you said, word for word, exactly what you said 8 years ago as well. Mm-hmm. What's your position on that?
Yeah, so it is very clear. I'll never sell the business till the day I die. And after I die, which will be many years in the future, hopefully.
How would you sell the business after you die? Says Paul, thinking to himself.
Yeah, so after I die, I'm so adamant that we keep the culture in Zen, and I've got a view that the world outside of the stock market, private equity, as Paul was saying earlier, they're in a system that fundamentally exists to generate money, return to shareholders. They're in that system. I never want Zen to be in that system, because I don't think it's sustainable for the well-being of the human race or for the environment, that system. So Zen has to always be different. So after I die, I've made provision in my will for my shareholding to go into a trust. And I've written a letter of wishes to the trustees to say, stick to the values. These are the happy staff, happy customers, happy suppliers. I don't want you to ever sell the business.
Mm. Just final question for the pair of you as well, in terms of, I couldn't think of two better ambassadors, for Rochdale than you two, because you are just, so genuine. And also what you've achieved in Rochdale is phenomenal. People look at it. I remember coming here 8 years ago, and half the staff that I remember then are still here today, and that gets down to actually it's about creating the right culture, having a happy company, and everything else comes along with it as well. If Richard came to you, Paul, and said, right, I'm going to be the new Richard Branson, I'm going to go on my hang glider, I'm going to fly across the channel, and I'm going to have Zen Internet emblazoned across my wings and my leotard. Now that you know what's happening to his shares, is that something you would encourage? What do you think? What do you think, as somebody who's newer to the business? What do you think the future is for Zen?
Oh, well, I'd certainly encourage Richard to do exactly that. I think it's a brilliant idea. We need as much PR as we can get. Now, the future for the business is fantastic. I mean, we're investing upwards of £8 million in terms of capital and operating expenditure over the course of the next 12 to 24 months. We've got a very exciting agenda for growth. Richard, as shareholder, is incredibly committed to the future growth of the business. But Richard could, if he wished to, siphon out huge amounts of dividends from the business in order to live a fancy lifestyle. He's not like that at all. His commitment is to the people of the business, to the future of the success of the plan, and so is very happy to endorse and support all of the strategic ambitions that we have. So watch this space. We intend to treble, quadruple over the next 5 to 10 years, and I look forward to being a part of that story.
Okay, listen,
I think just on the longevities, we do a little celebration when people get to 10 years of service, and I keep account. So as of today, there are over 130 people that work here that have been here for over 10 years, and that for me is very heartwarming. So the old-fashioned idea of a job for life is something that actually strikes a chord with me.
Yeah, Richard, absolutely fantastic. I mean, everything that the organisers today tried to get across, I think they've got across in spades with the pair of you as well. I think you've come as a mystery package as well, Paul, but I can see you fitting very neatly into this business as well. I know the organisers are very keen to say there's networking available afterwards as well. I mean, I think, as ambassadors go, I think you are two ambassadors for Rochdale. Put your hands together for Paul and Richard.